Brad, I want to come to you now. Based upon this, what does the prosecution need to do in a new case in order to secure these convictions, especially for the rape and sodomy charges?
I think they need to work on the credibility issue. There was a lot of credibility issues with Jane Doe 1 and 5, I think it was. And when you have a second chance at a prosecution like this, you really need to make sure that whatever held you back from the first one, you clean up now.
And when we talk about a jury pool here, I guess the question is, the defense has been raising some objections to the jury that's being selected. There were issues about what were they being informed about this trial too early on in the process. They found out his name too early on in the process, but also that there's not a good representation of African Americans on the jury. I don't know if you had a chance to see any of that and what you think about this new jury pool.
Well, there's not really much you can do about that. I mean, the jury's picked from a pool of residents. And the research has suggested that there's not a great deal of African Americans inside of this area where he resides. But you also, when you do have jurors, you can't dismiss them because you don't want the race on. And that was what the issue was, that they thought they were trying to exclude them intentionally. And that's unconstitutional.
And how much do you change cross-examining these Jane Does? I thought they did a pretty effective job at trying to show that there were credibility issues, but what did they need to do more?
It's difficult to say until you know exactly which Jane Does are being called. Everybody makes mistakes or second guesses themselves at trial. So here you had a lot of issues and a lot of charges and a lot of people. Now, for instance, Jane Doe number 1 had probably the most credibility issues. If she's going to testify, you can use those again and without having to clean much up. But the other ones where there were more serious charges found, you really need to figure out what you did wrong the first time.
So, Brad, let me ask you this. People who are new to this case might be kind of shocked to hear the different stories. What do you make of his M.O.? He's a convicted rapist now. But the question is, the different victims over this 2018-2019 period, the different events, the different locations, the age, what do you think about that M.O.?
I think a jury needs to find that he has some over-encompassing mental defect or sexual deviant conduct, because all of the Jane Does are horrible victims as far as what they had to go through, but they're all very different. You know, 2 were raped, 1 or 2 were exposed, 1 was years ago, and the other 3 were recent. So you have to believe that he's always had this problem and that he's just always got away with it until now.
Generally speaking, Brad, when you have a retrial, do you have a hung jury once again as to so many counts? Or do you see a change? Look, I know it's won and lost also with how you make your arguments, how you cross-examine, but you can have one set of jurors thinking one thing and one set of jurors thinking another thing. No 2 juries are identical. So is this a bigger risk with a retrial for the defense or the prosecution? I
don't think it's different for either side. You never know what a jury is going to think. I think when it comes down to it, the defendant only needs to get 1. So we talk about this 10-2 is not that great, but you know it's more than you need. You only need 1. So at least the defense can say, all right, let's really focus on what it was that got us that 2 votes. And let's highlight that, and let's highlight those across the board, because all we need is to get 1.